Hi everyone, this is a tutorial for the start of the low tide sweater. Now this video is really just to serve as a kind of visual reassurance that the steps you're following in the pattern are going to work out as they should. So here you're working a neckband first of all, unless you choose to omit the neckband, and I'll show you that option in a second. Then you're going to be working a right saddle shoulder, working around here to pick up some stitches, to work the left saddle shoulder, and then gradually pick up a few more stitches and work a little short row shaping to kind of create the start of this yoke. I'm going to kind of walk you through those steps in this video. Now I've cast on as if I'm going to omit the neckband. So this is the neckband as is suggested in the pattern. And if you don't like a close fitting neckband, then there's an option which is slightly different, where you cast on and don't work the neckband. And I'll just show you here what that looks like. So you can see straight away the difference in the size between this, the neckband neck hole, and the neck hole without the neckband worked. So hopefully that will kind of reassure you that if you really don't like snug neckbands, then this option will work really nicely for you. Okay, so the first step after either working the neckband or not is to work a right saddle shoulder. And what you're going to be doing here is between these first two markers, this is my beginning of round marker and this is the next one, you're going to work flat and you're going to work a panel of the cable and textured knitting that features on the right saddle shoulder, and in fact all the way down the sleeve. So you're going to be working this section here. This bit is worked flat. I'm going to work that now and then show you what it looks like. Okay, so I've worked the right saddle shoulder and hopefully you can see here what has been created. So here is my neck hole and I've worked this section flat as the pattern instructs. Now before you carry on, just double check that you've got your markers still in place. It's easy for them to drop off as you're turning your work to work flat. So you should have your beginning of round before the start of these, the right saddle shoulder stitches, and another marker at the end. So you're then going to slip your marker to the right needle and then move on to the next section. And what you're going to be doing here is picking up some stitches down the front edge of this right saddle shoulder that you've just created. Now the easiest way of doing that is to first of all pull your needles out from those stitches. At the start of the right saddle shoulder, you increased a stitch at each end of this panel, and you're going to be picking up between those two knit stitches. So if I bring it really closely, hopefully you can see that you've got that end stitch, which is a knit stitch, and you've got the second column of knit stitches before your purl and then the cable, etc. And so between those two knit stitches is where you want to be picking up. So you've pulled your needle out away from your live stitches just to give yourself a bit of room to work, and then you're looking to pick up a knit in the gap. Pick up a knit in the gap between those two columns of knit stitches. Now exactly how many stitches you're picking up and the ratio at which you're picking up these stitches varies slightly from size to size. You need to check the pattern for that, but you're going to pick up all the way along this edge of the right saddle shoulder. Once you've done that, you're going to then work a partial round along the front stitches until you get to the next marker. Okay, so you pick up along here, work in pattern to the next marker, and then you're going to be ready to work your left saddle shoulder. I'm going to do that now and then show you what that looks like. Okay, so you can see here, these are my picked up stitches along the front of the right saddle shoulder. I've worked in pattern up to the marker, and now between the next two markers, you're going to work your left saddle shoulder, which is pretty much the same as you worked the right it's a mirror image of this lace paneling. Okay, so do that now and then I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've worked the left saddle shoulder, as you can see here. And so now I've got my right saddle shoulder with those first picked up stitches along the front of that right saddle shoulder. I've worked the front and I've worked this left saddle shoulder. So as with the right saddle shoulder, what I'm now going to be doing is slipping the marker and then picking up stitches along the back of the left saddle shoulder. So to do so, I'm going to pull my needle through as I did before. I'm going to identify those 2 rows of knit stitches and make sure that I'm picking up in the middle, in between those 2 knit stitches. And again, you'll pick up with the same number of stitches as you did for the right saddle shoulder, and the ratio of those will be different depending on which size you're working. So you need to check the pattern for that. So you're going to pick up all the way along the back of this left saddle shoulder. And then when you reach the back of the neck band, which is here, you're going to work a partial round here. This is in the pattern at the bottom of page 6. You're going to work in pattern until you reach your beginning of round marker. So I'm going to do that now and then show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've picked up along that back left saddle shoulder and I've worked in pattern along the back of the neck stitches, and I've reached the start of the right saddle shoulder. And what you're going to be doing here is, as you did for the front of the right saddle shoulder, you're going to pick up stitches along the back of that saddle shoulder. Make sure here that your beginning of round marker stays on the left needle for now, because you want the marker to be in that position at the end of these picked up stitches, not before the picked up stitches. Okay, so I've picked up those stitches along the back of the right saddle shoulder. So now what you should have is these 2 saddle shoulder panels, and you've got stitches picked up on both sides of the right saddle shoulder, and you've got stitches picked up on the back of the left saddle shoulder. So what we're going to be doing now is working around the saddle shoulder along the front of these stitches, along the front of the neckline, and then picking up those last stitches that are needed along the front of that left saddle shoulder. Once you've done that, you'll then work in pattern to the end of the round, and then there's just one more step to do before you're ready to carry on working in the round and work that yoke. Okay, so I've picked up those final stitches and worked to the end of the round. And at this point, what you should have is 4 markers in total, 2 marking the start and end of the right saddle shoulder. The start of that section is also your beginning of round marker. And at the other end, you've got 2 markers separating out your left saddle shoulder from the other stitches, and alongside each of the saddle shoulders you should have stitches picked up. Now the last thing that you're going to be doing before you can kind of crack on with the yoke properly is to work a little bit of short row shaping. Now the reason for that is I'll just move my stitches over so I can show you at this side a little better. What we have at the moment is something that's rather flat and rather square looking, and so essentially what we want to do here is use some short row shaping to create the curve of the neckline and the slope of the shoulder. So rather than it being very kind of square and flat, we want to create those curves to fit our body a little bit better. And so what we're going to be doing here is essentially creating a triangle of fabric in this area here, and that triangle of fabric serves 2 purposes. One, to create that slope on the shoulder so that it's not just sitting really flat and square, and to give the front of the and the back of the neck band or the neck hole a bit more of a curve to it. So essentially we want the fabric to be sitting more like this, and we're creating a triangle of fabric in this area here to achieve that. So you're going to be working short row shaping in 4 places, everywhere that we need these kind of like this extra fabric, triangle of fabric. So 1,
two at the front, and then the same at the back, here and here, at that point where the saddle shoulder meets the neckband. So I'll work one of those now and show you what it looks like when it's done, and then you should be good to go. Okay, here's what that same section looks like once the short row shaping has been worked, which I think probably demonstrates better than I could explain what we're trying to do here. So as you can see, the shoulder now has like a nice slope to it, and there's a nice curve on the front of the neckline. So that's the first section of short row shaping. You're then going to keep following the instructions to knit along the front and work similar short row shaping at the left front side. Then you'll work the left shoulder, and then you'll follow the same instructions to work short row shaping on both sides of the back. And once you've got all of that done, then you are ready to kind of get started with the yoke properly and start to increase for the sleeves and later increase the front and the back. All right, so that is the start of the low tide sweater. I hope it helped.